Okay, first of all, you can't. So, Kirsten, you might hear me? Okay, so we are broadcasting live, and this is our very first USD Learns Google Hangout on air. And today we are going to be talking about blogging in the classroom. So right now I have two guest teachers with me, and I know I have one more that is going to be joining. And I'll have them introduce themselves for you right now.
Is that me? Hi,
Yes.
I am Jen Zangwell, and I teach social studies and tech at Union Middle School. This is my first year teaching the tech class, and we're using the blog as our format to show our work.
Good. And our next teacher?
Hi, I'm Chanmi Chun. I'm a 6th grade teacher at Union Middle School as well, and I teach social studies and language arts, and I just started my blogging adventure just recently with my language arts sections.
Good, and thank you for joining us. It's nice to have teachers in our district that are blogging and that are willing to have this conversation, because what I've been hearing, and for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Genevieve Picata. I am the technology integration TOSA, so I go into classrooms and I help do technology lessons with students. I help teachers integrate technology into their lessons, and I've had a lot of teachers who've wanted to start blogging, but they're kind of afraid and they're not exactly sure how to get started. So that's why I decided that we would put this Google Hangout on air together. So while we're waiting for Caitlin, why don't we start talking about just what got you interested in blogging with students? Oh, wait, here's Caitlin.
Can you hear me?
Yay, we can
Yay.
hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, cool.
So go ahead and introduce yourself, what school you're from, what grade you teach.
I am Caitlin Klein, and I teach at Carleton, and I'm in 5th grade this year.
Nice. And so we're going to just start talking about what got you interested in blogging with your students in the first place. So I don't know, who wants to go first?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
The main thing that got me interested is I've recently been motivated to get my students connected globally and basically like outside of their classroom. I feel like they have this life view of their own bubble, but they don't really know what it's like in other places. So I started blogging with my students as a way for them to connect with other people, even if it's like in the classroom next door or in the district. But I've also now been able to take it to different countries and things like that. So I think the main thing was sort of giving them an authentic audience besides just me, because they do a lot better work when it's not just for me, when it's for other people. So.
Yes. And so have you guys have actually connected with other classrooms already?
Yeah, so this is my first year doing blogging, and we did the Global Read Aloud project, and we connected that way through blogging with some classes in Canada and Saudi Arabia, and I forget what the other countries were, but they've talked to these other kids around the world through blogging. So that was like my main motivation, is getting them someone else to read their writing and to communicate with outside of myself and our class of 30.
Good, and I think we'll come back to that a little bit when we talk about student engagement with blogging. So that's great that you're connecting your class with other classes around the world. So who wants to go next?
I'll go next. So this is my first year teaching a tech class, and someone just suggested the idea of posting their work on a blog. It might have been you, Jenna, I can't remember. And I have to be honest, I had never done any blogging before, so this was very new for me. And it's still feeling new, but I've learned a lot, and I know the kids have too. So I just thought it would be an interesting way for them to display their work and in a customizable format, and for the other students in the class to be able to access their work too, so they can look at each other's blogs. They have access to everybody else's link. They can comment on each other's work. It's just a different approach as opposed to having them turn everything in through Google Classroom or getting up in front and presenting everything else. So it was just a different way to do it, and so far I love it.
Nice, and I do like that because this is a different way to think about student digital portfolios. So I know I've presented on digital portfolios and I've used Google Sites, but you can think about having your students post their work to a blog, and it's a great place for them to do reflections on their work too. Okay, Chanmi.
I started blogging with I wanted to start blogging with my students actually a couple years ago, but we just didn't have the one-to-one technology. And now that I'm in Chicago, and so now that I've moved into a district where we're one-to-one, it's been a delight to be able to have all the students have access to the devices. But with the blogging, I wanted them to be able to integrate their writing along with technology, and to have now take the writing workshop into calling a digital writing workshop. And so, it's one of those things where I've been teaching writing workshop for so many years, and the way I teach it in terms of the pedagogy is similar, but when you get to the publishing part, there's that limitation of who's the audience. And so with blogging, like Caitlin had mentioned, is that there is that authentic audience, and then you also want your teaching to go outside your classroom walls. And so when you're connecting with an audience that's not just even your peers, but it's peers that are in another state, another country, it's a pretty amazing experience for them. And it keeps the cycle of reading and writing going as well, because you're building that community of reading and writing and that relationship that the students will gain. And also one of my my PLC that I've met on Twitter had kind of encouraged the process as well, because I feel like Jen, where I'm still very new to this whole process of blogging. However, when this PLC member of mine in New York had said, hey, I'm starting this blogging process with my students, and he's a middle school teacher as well. And so that was kind of since I had a connection, another classroom I can immediately connect with, I'm like, why not? Let's just get it going. I might not have everything planned out exactly, anticipated every little thing, but I said, let's just start with it. So it's been a great adventure. It's just the beginning, but I think it's been fun so far.
Yeah, and I was actually in Chanmi's class earlier today. Can you share with them the book that you have on digital writing?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me pull it out of my bag.
Okay. Yeah, in her class, they're going to be connecting with students over in New York. So that's a great place to start if you have somebody who's willing to do blogging with your class. And it doesn't have to be all the way across the country. It can start with another classroom in the district. And Caitlin, are you connecting with other classes in the district?
Yeah, so we blog with my neighbor, Mr. Phillips, so the fifth graders kind of comment back and forth. But then we've also shared with Todd Sinclair's class over at Leeds, and so they, comment on our blogs. And it's nice for them to be able to. Oh, is he at Leeds? Sorry.
He's at Oster.
Oster, there we go.
Yeah.
It's nice for them to have sort of a shared experience since they are in the same district, but then they don't know each other at all, and they feel excited to be able to communicate with each other. And especially now that we went to science camp and came back, that's like a big thing. So it's been nice to let them share their experience together. Just a couple classes, so yeah.
Yes. But that's a really good starting point. And, if students get to see that their work goes farther than their classroom walls, then it makes it more meaningful. Yeah. So, yes. So, Chanmi, you have the book, I see.
I do. So at UMS, we have a book wall, professional development book wall, and so and I had just been perusing different. I actually am a bibliophile for professional development books, so I came across this. Troy Hicks has written a book called Crafting Digital Writing, and so that's where the concept of a digital writing workshop takes the pedagogy of what you think of as writing workshop, but thinks of it through the digital modality, so the different multimedia when you're doing videos and text, and when you're doing blogging and text, and some of like the Lucy Calkins architecture for writing workshop, all of those things are embedded because he mentions you want to make sure that you teach the writer, then the writing, and then the technology, and so I feel like when teachers are kind of concerned about the blogging, I think it's more about they have the teaching part and even understanding the writing part, but it might be the technology part that might be a little daunting.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing that resource. And I've created a blogging resource page, and I will add that book to that page. So I have a question from Mary Fran. She is asking, what is the earliest grade you would use blogging with? So I know we have 5th grade and we have 6th grade here, but where does anybody have an idea of where you might start blogging with students?
Well, I haven't blogged with my younger students, but I came across a blogging resource of a teacher. Her name is Linda Yolis, I believe she is in California. And the grade level of the kids are 2nd and 3rd grade, and I was just using one of the videos that the students had made about blogging tips on how to comment on a blog. Experts right there, and my 6th graders were watching it. It was really helpful. So, I mean, I would imagine in terms of the literacy, you can do it at a younger age. You just probably need more supports in terms of getting the typing and whatnot. But 2nd grade doesn't seem like it would be. Excuse us. But I would imagine, yeah, once they're able to get the facility of like knowing how to type. I know personally, my 2nd grade daughter is learning how to keyboard already, and she's using Google Classroom. So in terms of her literacy, she should be able to do short blog entries. And blog entries aren't meant to be books. So, you know, just even a short paragraph at a time would be suffice in terms of the content.
Right, and maybe even to do things like what Jen's doing with her Tech 2 class in having them create things. They can create something digitally, they can create, you know, a Google slide presentation, they can post it on a blog, and then they can write about it, write about the experience of using the tool, or write about, you know, their work. So 2nd grade, I think, is a good grade to start.
I think another option too is doing like a class blog. And so if you are not wanting to have every student blog individually, to have the teacher control it, but then have, like, if you even are in kindergarten and 1st grade, you could type for them or have them add to it, but just from the teacher moderator standpoint as opposed to individual blogs.
Oh,
I've seen that for younger grades too.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. If a teacher has a blog, then their students can at least comment on what their blog post is about. So that's
be in charge of like having like a guest post. Each student does their own post within it.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Yeah, like a guest post. That would be very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Nicole D'Alessio was suggesting to me that, you know, if you're too scared to start blogging with your students and you just want a safe place to start, you can actually blog within a Google Doc. You know, start by sharing a Google Doc and then having people comment on things there. And then when your students get comfortable, then maybe moving it into a blog.
I have to say that one thing that was exciting for me and a nice surprise, when I first started blogging, you know, I was nervous because I had never done it, but a number of my students had just done it on their own already, that I already, at least in middle school, you know, I already had some experts that actually taught me a lot, but also were there as resources to the other students in the class. So that's a really nice thing, at least about middle school, is you have those kids that have already tried it.
Yes, and I think I was going through some articles on blogging or some blog posts, and I saw Caitlin Tucker. She wrote a blog post about using blogs as like their 20% time. So giving students an option to take their blogs and really use it to write about things that they're passionate about. And that can get students really interested, because I'm guessing those middle school students that are writing their own blogs, you know, those are topics that they're passionate about, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's where I want to go with the blogs. Right now I have a lot more of a structured, like here, you know, here are some of the formalities of here, how do you create your blog post and all of those things. But and then introducing some different, you know, what do you call it, playing around with a few different writing genres. But eventually I do want the students to be the ones that decide what sort of topic they want to post on, whether it be something that they do individually or as a class, just so that that ramps up the ownership of the blog itself too.
Yes. And I think it's great what you're doing with your students and starting very structured and then, you know, kind of letting them get into that later. I have a question here from Perry Sweet. She is asking, How do you deal with proofreading before posting? And I'm actually going to turn this one over to Chanmi because she was talking about that second grade class that blogs, and I walked into her classroom just as she was going over some things. So hold on a second.
Well, we actually, before we published online, we went through the whole writing workshop process. And I don't know if that's exactly how I'm going to do it all the time, but we used our Google Docs. We did the writing workshop process where they brainstormed and then they drafted. Then they had 2 peer revision conferences with their classmates. And so the bulk of that proofreading for revision of ideas was done beforehand. And then they did the personal checklist of editing. I don't usually have the kids do that with partners because I want them to kind of hopefully catch their own spelling errors and punctuation and whatnot. But there were some nuances in your blog post because it depending on the topic, but for ours it was a personal narrative. They were choosing their one little word, which is a word they're going to focus on as their resolution for the year. It's more of a informal tone and voice, and so one of the tips that in that video from Linda Yolis's class, the students remember not to use too many exclamation points to show you're excited. One exclamation point is enough, and you can just add more words instead of exclamation points. I mean, little tips like that I thought was, words of the wiser from a second grader, in terms of not just catching spelling errors, but thinking of how you would communicate your ideas without using too many exclamation points. I'm
sorry.
Go ahead.
I've noticed that they seem to be more motivated to proofread because it is public, and it's not just something that their teacher is going to see and possibly, 1 or 2 of their classmates, but because it is in a public, domain, they're not, they take more ownership of that. Yeah.
Yes, and Caitlin, what do you do about having your students proofread?
I, definitely encourage it, and we talk about it that this is going out to the world, and you want to have your best writing out there. But they also are still, they still make a lot of punctuation and spelling mistakes. But I don't proofread for them. I will have the option of having others proofread and do peer editing. But I feel like it's just more of their own thing. I want them because I assign assignments for them to write about, but I also let them write about whatever they want so that they feel excited. So anytime that they want to go on and post a blog post, they are allowed to. So I'm not very strict on checking, but I mean they want to intrinsically because they don't want to be embarrassed by a lot of errors in their writing. But I don't enforce our normal writing procedure for editing.
Yeah, and I think, it might not be perfect when they start, but I think as they keep blogging, they catch each other. Then they start seeing errors in what their students or what their classmates are putting out there, and then that makes them want to do a better job with their post. If other people are telling them that they're making mistakes, they really want to try and do their best.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the size of the blog entry, because it is shorter typically, then it's that rehearsal. Like Caitlin was saying that she allows the students to be able to post as many entries as they'd like, and so in terms of when we're working on these big papers, then it's a longer scope of project. But in terms of the blog entries, if we're doing it more frequently and more as part of our routine, then automatically they're practicing those proofreading skills for editing. So, and in an authentic context as well, instead of doing these isolated exercises that sometimes don't apply. If they don't apply them, at least sometimes I usually see, unless they're actually writing and using it in their writing.
Right. Let's see. I have more questions here. I said, so do you let students write about whatever they want, or do you give them writing prompts? So Caitlin, I know, said you let them write about whatever they want, but do you also give them certain topics to write about?
So we'll go over, if we have something exciting happen in class, we'll write about it, or if I have a certain topic I want them to discuss or really think about, I'll assign that to them. But then I really want them to be excited about it. So if they want to go home and write about, the new Star Wars movie. I've had kids who are not that into writing suddenly, they get to write about whatever they want and share it, so they're excited about it. So I have both. I don't just assign, but then so it's been a good mix for my students. We'll see how it goes next year, though.
Yeah, and so and Jen,
So mine is
you
not as heavy on the text. Mine is more project based. There is some text, but in terms of their projects, they get to do their projects generally on whatever they want. So they may be using Powtoon and posting that video on their blog, and do a little teeny write up about it. But mine's not as heavy on text. But they do get to pick whatever topics they want to do for pretty much every single project. So they get really excited about it.
yeah, that's a really interesting way to do your elective class, and a fun thing for them too. And then Chanmi, I know you did just start, but where are you with?
So even though our first regular exercise with it was structured, it was still open-ended in terms of like what they were going to share about, because they are choosing their one little word. I've come across though, like when eventually I'd like to use it as part of our novel study, a discussion platform for them. Instead of having like preset, I give them text-dependent questions or whatnot, I really want to have it like an open-ended question where students can respond to it numerous ways. So if I do have a structured prompt, it will still be open-ended. There's not one way to be able to answer it, and it will be with a twist to be able to make it more akin to more of like an essential question, so make it broader so the students can hopefully dig deeper into like the theme of the book or whatnot. I see that when I want to use it for literature connections or whatnot, but in terms of topics, I think the power is the choice in this type of writing. And like Caitlin had mentioned, when you have students that all of a sudden have this choice, and then their voice just really develops, and there is that willingness. I know my power went out too. This willingness to write more about it, because it's showcase. I don't know. I don't feel like a lot of students have that feeling like they have like their voice matters, and so whatever they're interested in, not only do they become experts, but then there is that added interest to be able to share with people that might want to respond back to it. So that relationship with their reader is a lot more visible for them, tangible.
Yes, so I think that choice is a big thing, and you want your students to be excited about writing. You don't want it to be just another assignment. You don't want them, just to really turn them off from writing when they're using their blogs. And so we have another guest teacher who just joined us. So Todd, do you want to introduce yourself, what grade you teach, what school you teach at, and I guess you can tell us how you're using blogging in your classroom.
Sure. My name is Todd Sinclair. I teach 5th grade at Oster Elementary. This is the first year I've really tried to use blogging of any sort in my classroom. So it's trial by fire would be my best way to describe it. I saw a couple of different people give opinions on how to do it. And my main reason for doing it is I really want to get my students to write more and be passionate about what they're writing about. Because a lot of times if we're picking the subjects, it's I'll write until I'm done how many paragraphs, and I don't want them to ask how many paragraphs. I want them to ask, do I have to quit writing? So that was my reason for getting behind that. I have very, very mixed results so far, because I followed one person's guidance of let them solely pick their subjects and own the blogs and pretty much keep my nose out of it, other than making sure they're safe, making proper comments. So I've been doing that. So there's tons and tons about video games. Not exactly what I want, but some of them are writing and some of them are kids that don't write anything else. So I'm getting something out of there. I just need to find a way to get more and more of what I want, more quality writing, because that I haven't been seeing since I've started on my own.
And how often do you blog with your class?
I started off trying to make it a Monday morning activity when we come in. That was how was your weekend? I thought they might have something that excited them that they did over the weekend. And I've changed that to now it's every 2 or 3 weeks when I ask them to do it, although they're more than welcome to go in there and do that on their own time. And I have a couple of students, they blog occasionally on the weekend if there's something they're really excited about. But they're using it seems like, more as another way to communicate with one another than really beyond the classroom walls. So that's the part I'm struggling with, is getting those connections beyond my classroom walls that I was hoping for.
Well, I think as you continue to blog with your students and you can connect them with other classes, and they can start to get excited when they get comments from other students and see that what they're putting out there is actually, other people are reading and getting excited about it. So hopefully, you continue blogging and you continue to see more and more success with your students. I do have a question from Perry. She's asking if you're using Kidblog. So actually, we'll talk about, I know a couple of you are using Kidblog. We'll start with that, and then we'll talk about the other platforms, because that's a question when teachers start thinking about blogging, is what blogging platform should I be using? So how about, Caitlin, you want to talk about Kidblog and how you're using it?
I'm using Kidblog this year. I had looked into Blogger since we're a GAF school, since it would be all aligned with their Google accounts. But I liked Kidblog because it's easy for me to moderate it, and I know that only students or other classes are going there unless they have the link to our Kidblog. I also like that the students can post either to only their classmates or only our connections, which is the other classes we blog with, or they can make it public. So there's a lot of layers of privacy that I can, that they can choose. Plus, the moderation is easy for me. That's the main factor. And I think it's easy, like user-friendly for them. They don't have a hard time figuring it out. And the only downside is that it costs money this year. I think in previous years it had been free, but I think it's $40 a year. But with the money from Home and School Club, I feel like it's worth the $40 since we're using it all year. Yeah.
Yes. So now they used to have it free for up to a certain amount of students, which made it hard for middle school teachers because you have a lot more students. But now they only just do a free 30-day trial, and then they have you pay. But the features of Kidblog are really good if you really want a lot of privacy and you really want control over their posts and who gets to moderate it. And actually, I did some blogging with my 4th grade students, and after a while, I would assign certain students as the moderator of posts, the ones that I knew did a good job and that I could trust, and then that job kind of rotated, and they really liked doing that, and then that was one less thing for me to do.
Yeah.
So I know Chanmi is using Kidblog, and you're using it with 6th graders, so how is that working for you?
Caitlin kind of covered the two reasons why I think I really like using it. It costs some $30 or $40, and I just paid for that on my own. I don't feel you can add up to 200 students, so that's more than enough for middle school at least. I think, right? That would be okay for you, Jen, right? If you had to do your sections. Yeah. Oh, we went dark again. But yeah, the privacy, the issue with privacy is the big thing. I think that some teachers. Let me stand up and so I'm not in the dark. Give me a second. I'm back. The privacy issue, I think, is what especially the students teachers of younger students might be concerned about. And so the layers of privacy is great, and then you can. When you make those connections with other classrooms, you keep that within that network, or you can do it with just your, your classroom. So I think that kind of eases any teacher's, conscience about making sure that the student's work is private, if you whatever level of privacy you want. For my, it depends on the activity itself, I guess, too. But the use of it, the kids, they're brand new to blogging, most of them, and so logging into it, setting up the blog post, I feel like it's. Compared to, like, I did check out Blogger too, I think, but I think this was a lot easier to figure out than Blogger was. So.
Yeah, and they quickly learn how to customize their blog because they love doing that. They really want to make the page their own. So how about, Jen, you're using Blogger.
I'm using Blogger, but really that's because that was the first one I heard about, and it was recommended, and it was one of the ones that some of the kids were familiar with, so I knew I would have some backup. And so far, I like it. In terms of sharing the blog out with other schools or other states or whatever, I haven't quite figured that out yet. I don't know if it's as easy with Blogger as it is with Kidblog. But, it's pretty user-friendly. The kids love to customize it, just like they probably do with Kidblog. So, it's pretty easy. I like it.
Yeah, and I know that Jen had set up a Google slide. Was that you who created?
Some of my students last semester said, hey, we have some extra time. Do you want us to create a Google slide presentation on how to create your own blog on Blogger? And I was like, sure, no problem. That would be wonderful. So they created this whole slide deck, and they even went into how to customize, how to get these add-ons, how to do this and this and this. I mean, took it to a whole new level. It's narrated by these teddy bears with these speech bubbles. It's hilarious. They put in some humor. It's very much middle school. So it's kind of nice. So I have it up for my current tech class, and they keep referring back to it. One of the kids even today said, oh my gosh, I went back to that slide deck and I saw that you can add these like swimming fish up the side of your blog, based on what that presentation said. And they said, it was so cool. I have those now. So that was completely kid generated.
So actually, do you mind if I share that as a resource for other teachers?
Not at all.
And so I looked at it, but one thing that I did want to make sure was that since it was created by one of your students, can they at least put their name on it, because it doesn't say who made it, and I really want to give them credit for doing it.
Slide?
I don't think so. It starts with two bears like having a conversation.
Okay, so I think I will make sure we have their names on there.
So yeah, so something to know about Blogger, it probably is more for middle school. I probably wouldn't do it at the elementary school level. Let me see if I can screen share, because I did start to, it's not completely finished, but let's see. I'm going to screen share this one. Oh, let's see. Okay, are you seeing this using Blogger with students?
Yes.
Okay, so when you do have your students use Blogger, one, they don't have access to Google+, so this really isn't an option for them. So you're going to have them create a limited Blogger profile, and when they do a display name, just make sure that they're not using their last name. And then the other thing to do, which Jen, you might think about having your students do this, because we check the privacy settings. So automatically it's set so that the blog is in their listings, and then search engines can find their blogs. So if you go into the settings and then you change that so that it's not in their listings and you can't search it from a search engine, and you save the changes, then that should be good, and then your student should be all set up for Blogger. So I created that, and I will put that on a resource page along with Jen's presentation, student-created presentation of how to get started with Blogger. So Todd, do you want to share with us about Edublogs? Let's see. Hold on, let me see if I can unmute. Oh, wait, can you unmute yourself, because I'm having a hard time doing it. Or maybe we're both trying to press it at the same time, and this is where... Okay. No. Okay, I will try one more time. I do have this control room. So this is our very first Hangout on air, so I've never done this before. I don't know how to unmute Todd right now.
He looks unmuted from my angle.
He looks unmuted from my angle right now, too.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay.
The microphone just went away.
Oh, it went away.
Yeah.
Wait, or does he look, is he paused here?
Oh, I think he's paused. You're right. He is not moved.
Uh-oh, he might, okay, so what might happen is he might need to...
Oh, there he is.
Should I log out and log back in?
Oh, no, you're back. Yay. Okay, so Blogger.
Still frozen, but that's fine.
Or Edublogs, that's what you were using. Okay, I don't know. Are you there?
Yep. Yeah, but it's
His screen
on
is
my end.
Oh
Look,
yeah.
if I talk and pay no attention that the screen is white.
Okay.
I'm using Edublogger. I chose that out of the three options that we talked about. Again, after seeing a couple of other people at some of the tech things that we've gone to, Kidblog seemed a lot friendlier. And Blogger, I was told there's a lot more adult content, which is really easy for the kids to access or stumble across, which is why I did not choose to go that route. So I went with Edublogs. The one person who I saw speak really passionately about it loved it because of the versatility and the ability for the kids to really customize and make it their own. It is harder to work with than Kidblog. And I'm still struggling to figure out how to fully use Edublogs. My kids have been doing well figuring things out, and I try and have the class experts help out other students in here. I don't know if I'd go with this again or if I'd probably switch over to Kidblog next year just for ease of use. The price is about the same. It's a $40 a year price point as Kidblog is currently. And again, it has a lot of customizability for the kids. Every single blog looks completely different for the kids. But again, some of them don't know how to completely fix it, so some of them still have some of the help features sitting there in their blog from when they originally set it up.
Yeah, and one thing that Todd did share with me is that they do some challenges. So can you talk about the challenge, the extra Edublog challenges that they post on their page? Let's see, I was trying to pull it up. I know he had sent me a link. Let's see. Todd, are you there? Okay. Well, if he comes back or when he comes back, maybe he'll have to like log out and log back in to get back in. So here's another question. When I select questions, are you guys seeing it on the right-hand side?
No.
Oh, go to the left and click on the button that says Q&A.
Oh.
There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Now I see
Okay. So so here we go. I just clicked on the one that says tips and caveats. So what are tips that you would have for other people who are thinking about starting to blog?
I'd say start off by paper blogging and looking at other blogs as like exemplar blogs so that students have a really clear idea of what they're allowed to do. I actually have my paper blogging example if you want to check it out. So my students, before I let them online to post things, I've seen it where they get to customize the top of their blog, but I didn't do that. Apparently I missed that part. I gave them all a piece of paper, and then they wrote about whatever they wanted to write about, and they had to, proofread to make sure it was their best work. And then after the next day, we practiced, we went over commenting guidelines for. I actually watched the Linda Yolis video of those comments, and the students went around and practiced making good comments on Post-its. I think they get a really good idea of what the expectations are before they're ever allowed to post it online. So that was my main thing, is to really spend time looking at other example blogs and then practicing on paper before actually getting online.
That's a great idea, and that's really good if you want to use it with younger students. It's a good way to start out. So let's see, Jen, what are some tips that you have?
I really like that idea about, especially if they're doing heavy text on their blogs. I love that idea that you just said. I don't know, I guess, trying to think, giving them, one thing I like to do is give them a little freedom. I know there are the pluses and minuses to that, but giving them some creative freedom, because for a lot of them this is a creative outlet and it's making the writing process fun. So I just try to offer it as, give them the freedom and offer them opportunities for creativity. I can't really think of any other really good tips that I could give right now. I guess maybe looking at the different blog options after this. I kind of want to go check out the other blog options after this and seeing which one is most appropriate for your kids in terms of elementary, middle school.
Two things that come to mind for me is that as part of the writing process is teaching them just as much about how to write a blog entry as to comment on the blog, because that's a big component. It's like teaching them how to confer when they're doing peer revisions and peer editing. So in terms of now replying back to keep the conversation going, today I started my lesson on how to comment. That's something that I know is not part of my traditional writing workshop process from way back when, and it will be now as part of my digital writing workshop with blogging. And there are specific, what do you do what is the routine, and when you, what are the processes of what you do, what content of the comment, and how do you start off with, it's like a conversation where you write a letter and you start with something positive. So there's, and then how do you keep the conversation going? What do you do to keep the conversation going? How do you make connections with the writer? So that's an aspect I think that would be important for people to explore, and how to teach that explicitly to the students as well. And the other thing that came to mind is that, what was that? It'll come to me. I'm having a moment. I'll get back to you when I remember.
Yeah, and I really like the presentation that you shared with your students today. Would you mind sharing that with on our resource page? And I think you also made a pictochart infographic too to help your students, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I will have all those resources available for everyone. I'll put that on the blog resource page, and then I will blog about it. So let's see, tips. Todd, do you have any tips about blogging?
No.
That's okay.
Where I got cut off, the thing that I'm trying to do now is come up with challenges to try and motivate them to go beyond what they're doing without me giving a set assignment. And the one, I don't know if you tried to explain it since I had to power down completely to get back in here. I found something that was a blog post completely in GIFs, and it was a teacher had done it, and it was really, really well done. And it's challenging to think about it, but I threw that out there as a challenge to my students, although I have yet to show them how to make a GIF. But the challenge was to go out there, and if they're excited by it, figure out how to do that on their own, write something that they want to have, and then find the GIFs or create the GIFs to make it. And I know I already have right now 3 or 4 students that are working towards it, but it's not going to be something that's produced in a week. It's going to take them a while to produce it, but I'm excited because they're actually going out of their way to figure out how to produce these things, writing a script, and then seeing what works with it. So they're a little more active than they had been in the past. And then I threw a second challenge out because they have links to about 12 different blogs from all over the world that I've challenged them to go out and visit and leave comments, constructive comments, and then to leave a link to their blog to come back to. So the second challenge I had was who can have the most comments from outside of our classroom on their blogs by the end of the month. So I'm trying to get some other things to generate their interest and to push them, because I do know as soon as they start getting those comments back from outside of the room, that's what's really going to inspire them to write more.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and those are some great tips. So I know that this all seems really new, and it's a learning experience. But that's why we're having this conversation right here. I have. Oh, you remembered?
Yeah,
okay.
I remembered. Because as I've been researching about how to teach my students how to blog, I found that it was important that we looked for. I looked for resources that says about kids writing blogs instead of blogs about kids, because there are parenting blogs and whatnot. And so I found a great resource. I mean, like Edublog had a couple of things on blogging tips for kid writers. I think that was helpful in helping me generate ideas in terms of writing workshop mini lessons for blog writing.
Yeah, so I know you guys all have some really good resources out there, so I will be contacting you, asking you if you could share all those things so that I could share it with other teachers just to kind of help get them started. So I have Todd, Mr. Feinberg, is asking, how can the principal encourage more teachers to blog on their own for professional growth and learning opportunities? Do you know of any teachers who are blogging about their own experiences? Do any of you?
My principal blogs. But I don't know. Chanmi, are there any teachers on staff that blog?
Not that I'm aware of. I may be starting one. But I've always, but not. Maybe I always. I don't know. I thought about many different like topics to focus on, because otherwise I think I would just go off and it'll be an unfocused blog. Who would want to read my unfocused thoughts here? But yeah, in terms of encouraging the teachers to write more, I mean, I am one of the bloggers on our class blog. So if I want my students to write, I need to be the mentor for them and show them my writing life. And so I am going to be writing about something. I just got to decide what that something will be in terms of, and hopefully them seeing me part of the writing community will also encourage them to see that writing is not just what happens in middle school and high school, but happens in your adult life when you're not forced to write about it in school, but you're doing it just because your story is important and it should be shared, and no matter what stage of life you're in. And so hopefully I can be a mentor for them by starting to put up my own blog posts. And so I can't, well, I could, but I could say it's your assignment and you're the only one doing it, but I want to take it back on myself and really put myself back in having more of a writerly life, is what Lucy Calkins calls it, and be that mentor for my students.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, if your students see that you're blogging, then, and it's not for them, it doesn't have to just be a classroom assignment. It's something that they could just take into their life, and, the students are blogging in their own time. Caitlin or Todd, do you know of any teachers that are blogging?
I don't personally know of any. For my own self, I feel like I don't blog because I'm intimidated to put my ideas out there. So maybe having a school blog where all the teachers could contribute instead of having just one. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'd be nervous to have my own blog. I don't know if that sounds silly, but maybe having
part of our websites or something, like we're blogging about what's going on in our classrooms, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, teachers do have their own web pages, and they are kind of saying what they're doing out there. But you're right. I know what you mean about putting your thoughts out there. I have to tell you that, since I've taken this role, and Mary Fran and Nicole and I are splitting the job of doing our USD Learns blog, one, it takes me a long time to write a post because I'm afraid that what I put out there, it's, going to have all these mistakes. And I hate pressing the send button. That's really, really the hardest part. And it gets easier, I guess, with time. But it also helps to know that it's not just me. It's the three of us. So you could actually do that, and that would be a really good idea, is that maybe you could, as a school, create a blog and have all the teachers as contributors. And, when you do have something that you really want to share with other teachers, you put it out there on your blog post. On a blog post. So that's a great idea.
It would be a lot less intimidating if you knew you were part of a larger group contributing to this, as opposed to hey everyone, here are my amazing ideas, go and read them.
Right.
Part of a larger group.
So Caitlin's volunteering to start one for us to all do together.
I'll
just, I tried to, because I feel, and it kind of goes back to, I think someone already mentioned this, if I'm asking my kids to do it, I should be doing it as well. So I've forced myself. I'm not as consistent as I'd like to be, and I'm very self-conscious of what I put out there, because I feel like I'm still really new, and I feel like if I put it out there, I'm telling people what they should be doing. And when there are people that have far more years teaching and working with kids than I do, I feel like I'm overstepping my bounds sometimes, and I don't want to step on toes. So, but I kind of pushed myself past that discomfort and figured if I'm asking the kids to do it, I need to do that so they can see that I'm doing it, and they also get to see an example, not just of the students that they get to see through the other websites they get to look at, but they see what I'm doing and what I kind of expect when they actually take the time to put a thoughtful blog together. And I haven't written that many. They're mostly circus. They're mostly about the conferences I've gone to, ideas that I'm excited to bring into the classroom, or things going on with my family that kind of excite me about coming back into the classroom just because of stuff going on with my family. But they're very few and far between at the moment. I need to do more.
Yes, well, yeah, thank you guys for all of your thoughts. I'm probably going to wrap it up. We're getting close to being here for an hour, but I am going to be posting this on the USD Learns blog with the resources, and I really want to thank the four of you for being here with me, doing this for the very first time. I'm sure we'll have some more USD Learns Hangouts on air, and we'll just continue to invite different teachers to share what they know and kind of put it out there so that we can learn from each other, because it's so hard when you're in your own classroom. You know what you're doing. You might know what a few teachers at your school are doing, but you know, we don't really have a chance to go in and see it in action or have these kinds of conversations. So we really appreciate the time that you spent telling everybody about your blogging adventures.
Can I add one last comment?
Sure.
I don't have to be the final comment, but just about this adventure in blogging, I think all of us have the common theme where we're still new to it, and as teachers, I don't think we have to be the expert. We don't have to be the one that knows everything. We anticipate as much as we can, of course, try to plan the lessons, but the adventure of teaching is that the students, if they, like Jen had said, like they became the experts, they're the ones who took the lead. I mean, that's eventually what we want our students to strive for in terms of taking ownership of their learning. And so I say, in terms of the blogging adventure, it's one of those things where it takes you out of your comfort zone in terms of understanding the technology and even understanding how to create your own digital presence in the world. But I'd say it's a great platform in which for you to learn that yourself as a teacher, and then to have the students grow as a learner as well. So I say,
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I don't know who was more excited about the blogging, me or the kids, because I seriously, I mean, I almost wanted to high five myself when I put up my first HTML, like, you know, whatever. It was amazing. I was really excited. So it is scary. I was really nervous at first, but it's been an awesome learning experience for me and the kids, and they really are the experts. So it's awesome. I love it.
Hey, any last words from anybody else?
I say I agree with both of you guys. Just dive in, try it out. It's much less scary once you're doing it, and it's really rewarding for the students to give them this larger audience that motivates them to write and read each other's writing. So it's been nothing but great. I definitely recommend it.
Yes. Todd, any last words?
Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Everyone should be trying, like all the technology that we're dipping our toes into and exploring. This is another one of those things that helps the kids get outside of our classroom, and we should all be taking the step, no matter how scary it might seem and how intimidating it might seem to all of us. And hopefully having a few people start leading the way and experimenting will get more people continuing the path.
Yes, it's not going to be perfect, I mean, especially in the beginning, but it's a learning experience for everybody, and just know that we have teachers in our district that are here. We're here to support one another for advice or for anything that you might need. So with that, I will just wrap this up and thank everybody for watching. If you watched it live or if you're going to watch it later, thank you, and thank you to our guest teachers.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. See you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just exit.